I'm not a flat earther, but this is just kind of an intellectual exercise about how you could easily rationalize a flat earth. For example, let's purely on empirical grounds, let's just assume that the only way you can find truth is through your senses, right? We cannot sense the curvature of the earth, right? It's a type of thing that we have to kind of work out using some other parts of our reasoning, some other parts of our mind, not just our senses. We have to kind of reason and kind of correlate things, right? No one watching this video has probably been out into space and has looked down, right? That's kind of down onto the earth to kind of figure out what the actual shape of the earth is. A lot of you guys are just probably blindly believing that the earth is round. Of course, it probably is round, but that's still kind of a belief, which is kind of funny, right? A lot of our knowledge is kind of based on assumptions. It's not based on concrete facts that you could reason and prove and test and demonstrate to be true, right? Again, the earth being round on empirical grounds through purely empiricism, right? Can you see the curvature of the earth? Could you see how the earth is a sphere, how that's the correct interpretation of what the earth is through your senses? And of course you could say, well, we have satellites in space, we have all of this imaging of the earth, and we can go and fly drones around and see the curvature and stuff, which is true. But let's just kind of say that you have to only use your senses, your eyes, because again, that technology that we have that's recording the earth, this might become kind of absurd, but that technology might be faulty. There could be some type of fault, and it could be not capturing the actual structure of the earth. And again, probably not true. The earth probably actually is round. I'm not even a flat earthist, but this is again more of an intellectual exercise, right? Can the earth be demonstrated to be round? Again, purely through empirical observation, purely through your sight, purely through what you see. Can it really is probably maybe can be to a lesser extent. To a lesser extent, it could be kind of shown that the earth is round because of the way the world works, because of some parts of physics that we can observe and see, right? But again, the earth being round, that's kind of a belief. You have to kind of believe that's the case, right? You have to kind of interpret that as being true with no solid empirical foundation, right? Because again, of course, unless you've actually been out into space and looked down on the earth, you could never fully and fundamentally claim and with 100% that the earth is for sure round and not flat. Of course, empiricism kind of gets absurd, right? If you kind of only rely on empirical observation, a lot of science would never be completed, right? Because our eyes, we can only see so much, right? That's kind of, we can't sense a lot of things that are absolutely necessary for scientific research. So again, this is kind of, and again, I'm not making the argument that the earth is in fact flat. It's just kind of an intellectual exercise. Can the earth be demonstrated to be round? Again, on empirical grounds, it's very difficult. Again, you can't see any type of curvature using with only your sight. Of course, you can say we can fly drones into the sky. And again, I already mentioned that what if our technology is, what if this is just an illusion that gets created by the imaging process of the camera that creates the curvature? It's not actually there. This is also plausible again, but it is probably true that the earth is not flat, that the earth is actually round. But of course, again, that's just again a belief, right? Which is something that a lot of people don't appreciate. Like a lot of our knowledge, again, isn't factual. It's kind of based on assumptions, right? You assume a lot of things are true because of what the academics claim, right? Because of what the scientists claim. And That's probably not what you should be doing. You should be actually conducting your own research. And this also ties into a lot of conspiracies, and especially UFOs and extraterrestrials. Many people claim that aliens don't exist. Is that true, or have you actually conducted your own research on that particular topic? That's something you gotta kind of think about. You have to kind of develop your own intelligence. You have to kind of work things out for yourself. But is, again, the Earth flat? Probably not. But can you prove that the Earth isn't flat? It's kind of, and you can claim, well, we can observe physics at a flat Earth. The physics of a flat Earth aren't provable. They can't be shown to be true. So the Earth is not flat. We can see how the Earth is round. We can see how the physics match that assumption. We can see how there's overwhelming proof for a round Earth. We have the satellites in space. But again, a lot of it is based on assumptions. You're assuming that the images we get from those satellites are correct or accurate, right? You're assuming that the physics we have, our current understanding of physics, is all there is. There isn't something else that might disprove a round Earth and might prove a flat Earth, as ridiculous as that sounds, right? A lot of again, our knowledge is not based on facts, but on assumptions that are baseless, that can't be demonstrated to be true. It's very bizarre. History, this also ties into history, because a lot of history is just completely fabricated, right? You know what's bizarre? We don't have any of Aristotle's original works, right? Aristotle's original works have just been lost to time. What we have are later renditions of his work made up by other people. And these works that were made up by other people, they're just attributed to Aristotle. And of course, we don't have any way of knowing if Aristotle actually wrote any of this, or if Aristotle was even real, right? I'm not really sure that Aristotle wrote his own biography. I know Socrates and Plato, those two Greek philosophers, there's a lot of things to doubt about them being real. I heard that Socrates was just kind of some type of person made up for kind of like debating with, just kind of a fictional character to kind of stimulate debate. Plato is kind of a lot more obscure, but history is kind of it's kind of fabricated in a lot of cases. Because you have to think about it, like, who was recording all of these exact details? If we kind of jump to Genghis Khan, the Mongols they had no strong literary tradition. They weren't, no strong scholarly tradition. A lot of our accounts on them come from later sources by other people, by other groups that weren't observing everything perfectly. And so it's probably true that a lot of the history of the Mongols is probably heavily tainted and not accurate, like with any other type of history, right? Plus, you also have to think about the politics of history, right? Kings, would you really think that they would allow any type of unfavorable information to be passed down to later generations? Probably not. A lot of accounts were probably burned. A lot of information was probably just thrown to the dustbins of history, and there was no way we could know what actually happened in the past. That's something you gotta kind of just accept. And just like, again, to bring it back to the flat Earth, on empirical grounds, a flat Earth is perfectly logical, right? We cannot see any type of curvature. The Earth might as well be flat as far as we're concerned, right? You have to rely on things outside of your senses, right? You have to assume that the satellites in space, they're actually showing us a true image of the Earth being round. That is not just some type of lie.